but eventually we're going to come down to one.
That's
Who's
true.
going to be our champion?
Yeah, there's still a lot of Magic to be played.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think the first thing is we have to resolve our mini tournaments.
Yes.
We have the Battle of the Reds, and we have the Battle of the Is It Prowesses. And we've been ping-ponging back between them, just seeing first a Is It Prowess mirror, then a Mono Red mirror, and now we get another Is It Prowess mirror here.
The top half of our bracket, Ken Yukihiro, Andy Garcia-Romo, Yu Chen Liu, and Percy Fang. Well, those were all mono reds, and we see who's through to the semifinals. So in our first semifinals, when we get to it, it'll be a mono red mirror between Ken and Yu Chen. For Tony Portland, who won the Is It Prowess mirror against David Rude, that's our player that's through. He is waiting for an opponent, and it's between Christian Baker, who is 8-0 after day number 1 of this tournament, against Ian Robb, who made top 8 at Pro Tour Ether Drift. Both these players starting to add top finishes to their resumes. You see the records there. Ian was the first player into the top 8 at 14-2. Christian, one of the last, but making the most of this appearance. Is It Prowess mirror is where we are headed. And we're going to take a look at some deck list here too, starting with Ian Robb.
Yeah, Ian Robb is one of the players that came very quote-unquote top-heavy, which is weird to say in a deck that caps out at 3 mana, but 3 copies of Draycatcher plus the full 4 copies of Vivi does also have that explosive factor that we've seen from some players with 2 copies of Wild Ride in his deck, so has that ability to add some haste out of nowhere and have this big explosive Vivi turn. Looking at the sideboard, you do see access to some copies of Unable to Scream, and also cards like Lithomantic Barrage that have been so important in this mirror match, as well as a card like Get Out that we've seen sometimes when the games get a little grindier, being almost used as another copy of This Town Ain't Big Enough. Now, on the other side, Christian Baker, also on Is It Prowess, he has the most unique build of Prowess that we saw this weekend. He has access to 3 copies of Astrologian's Planisphere in the main deck, as well as cards like Enduring Curiosity in the sideboard. You do see 2 copies of This Town Ain't Big Enough, and he's the one that actually has the Planisphere instead of cards like Monastery Swiftspear or Draycatcher, saying that rather than go wide with a bunch of Drakes, I want to go tall with the Planisphere, which hasn't typically been the avenue to success in the mirror match. Now, I will say both the players have played this matchup quite a bit over the course of this weekend. Ian Robb, I believe, is 3-1 in the mirror. And for Christian Baker, every match of Constructed he played yesterday was the Is It Prowess mirror, 5 of them.
Oof.
And he went 3-2 over the course of them. So not bad, not great, but this is probably going to be the most important mirror match he's played so far this weekend.
Well, we are going to settle into a mirror match here between Is It Prowess. We've seen it before, and guess what? We're going to see it again in the semifinals. The question is, which of these 2 players is it going to be? Christian Baker's on top, Ian Robb on the bottom, and we are underway. Good sportsmanship to kick things off, and it will be Ian who kicked things off with a Storm Chaser's Talent, and there's the Otter.
Please use the purple for talent. Okay. Thank you. Yep.
Storm Chaser's Talent as well here for Christian Baker. So both players with a nice little start with their Prowess Otter. And now the follow-up is a Corey Steelcutter. Trigger the Prowess on the Otter, and in for 2 comes Ian Robb.
Yeah, that's what we call the good one in terms of the plays that he could have played there. Now, one thing that is notable for Christian Baker, doesn't look like it's going to be relevant this turn. He is one of the players that has brought a main deck copy of Abrade. So he actually has a potential permanent answer to Corey Steelcutter. Doesn't have it this turn, of course, and will need some work to fight against the Corey Steelcutter, as going wide has been the most successful strategy here in the mirror, and Corey Steelcutter is the card that best enables going wide. So we'll see how things go for him, as he also doesn't seem to be portraying any red mana right now.
Play Mountain. I'll cast Wild Ride, trigger Prowess.
A Wild Ride is going to trigger Prowess on that Otter.
Yes, please use the
I'm
blue
going to
dice.
for Prowess Dash.
We're going to let Ian talk through this turn.
Okay. That's Monster's Rage, trigger Prowess and Cutter.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab a Monk and a Roll token. I'll be attacking you for
8, 10.
Correct. I'll put you to 8.
8.
I'll pass the turn to you.
Not a bad turn.
Not a bad turn.
Yeah, not a bad turn.
Going wide and tall at that point.
Yes, indeed. Now, it is worth noting that Ian's got a land and I think a stock up left in hand. So the likelihood of being able to trigger the Corey Steelcutter next turn is also somewhat high, given the 4 mana threshold that will be available. Speaking of mana thresholds, Christian has a problem.
No red.
Nailed it.
Yeah, and I think one of the big
On
things
top.
is we've seen Torch the Tower and Into the Flood Maw being the tools that these players have used in the mirror match to keep the board under control. When you remove half of those, the Torch the Towers are not available. Things are going to very quickly snowball, and unless Christian has exactly double Into the Flood Maw here, I think this game is not long for the world.
I think I'm inclined to agree as stock up is resolving. Sleight of hand among the options here for Ian. There's also an opt in there, and I think another copy of stock up, and then 2 lands that I imagine he's not terribly interested in. So some blue cards are headed that way, and the rest are going to the bottom. Next up, it's a Torch the Tower.
This, I'll trigger Covering Prowess.
Bargain, sacrificing the Storm Chaser's talent.
Yeah, saying Christian will need 3 spells to keep this alive with prowess.
And this is a spot where something like this town ain't big enough could work itself into the equation. We'll perhaps see here in just a moment. Hear from Christian Baker. And it looks like that otter's gone.
Yeah, Christian does have access to 2 copies of this town, but ain't big enough. Not a typical choice.
There's Tom.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Flood Maw token, I would guess.
Yep, there's the
Yeah.
Blood Maw of the token. Okay, so
Good
Christian
six.
does a nice job of making it at least out of that turn alive, where that could certainly have not have been the case. So let's see if he's able to restabilize a little bit here. Again, is still missing red mana, but perhaps that changes at some point during this turn thanks to this sleight of hand.
Now, Cedric, I'm going to put my own neck out on the line here.
Bold.
I did some math. I think Ian may have missed 1 prowess trigger 2 turns ago.
Okay.
And may have missed 1 point of damage, if I'm not mistaken, which I very much could be. And I'm not saying that that's going to be the difference maker. I'm not saying that Christian Baker is going to come back into this game. But all I'm saying is, if things start to stabilize and you see Christian Baker still have an extra point of life to work with,
That's Cutter, trigger Prowess.
I don't think we're going to get
Yeah.
there. Never mind. Never mind.
It's the point of damage, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Not saying you're wrong.
2.
Just saying I don't think Ian cares.
I don't think
Yeah.
Ian
Try
cares.
1.
Saying I got some monks, I got some cutters.
Bottom.
Top card becomes the bottom card. New one coming.
Another core steel cutter in hand I
Beat
saw.
down.
Block
Yep. Who you 2?
yes.
Looks like it's 2.
Could have been 1.
Yeah.
I'll pass the turn.
Here's an opt. Top card.
It's like this.
Gonna take that one. Ooh. Took it with some confidence. I can appreciate that
Yeah.
from Christian. Let's see what this is going to be. Finally, red mana's online. Is there enough to catch Baker back up? I think that's the question.
Yeah.
Very far behind
Confirming.
right now.
We're still in the pre-board game.
Oh, yes.
Fire magic. Yeah, no, I think we're looking pretty close to done here.
Tanya,
Talent. And your mom's trigger.
get this out of here. Trigger that there.
Yeah.
Sharing.
mine.
Sharing is caring. And now replay this. All right, try to get lucky. Gonna
Stock
fail,
up
but
on the other side.
yeah, I mean,
whatever. it's
I don't
fine.
mind trying to get a little lucky. That's all. So there's that. Smell
Plenty
you
of
later.
routes.
All right, Ian Robb getting the job all done in game number 1 over
This is
Christian
your
Baker. Corey Steele cutters, plural. Much too difficult to
This is a
overcome
friendly
there
reminder, these
for
matches are
Christian
best
Baker.
3 out of
So
5. There will be no sideboarding before this game 2. After game 2, once sideboarding has been completed, I'm going to pause the match and step away with your sideboards to communicate to the broadcast team how you've sideboarded.
Sounds good.
You can resolve mulligans while I'm doing that. Please do not begin.
Sounds good.
our table judge, very, very helpful there, explaining exactly what's going to happen for those of you that might be newer to the competitive landscape of Magic the Gathering. So the first game is pre-sideboarded, the second one will be too, and then these players will take their time to get some sideboarding done. Now remember, I think each player is without Monastery Swift Spear in this matchup, so some of the more aggressive slants to Is It Prowess we're not going to find here.
Yeah, one of the things that we actually saw Tony Portolon, who is our only Swift Spear bearing, is a prowess player in the top 8, did point out in his winner's interview previously, is Swift Spear gives you an edge in the matchup on the draw. That's where he said that the card was actually at its best, is when you're on the draw in the matchup. So here, Ian Robb being on the draw after winning the first game would be nice to have access to it, but of course, not something that either of these players do have access to.
These players are going to shuffle up here and get ready for game number 2. So if you are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Monty DeVuti, we are here at Pro Tour Final Fantasy at MagicCon Las Vegas. After this round, we're going to head back to the news desk and get our semifinals all set up. And then Marshall and Paul will be on the call to take care of the next round. Eventually, we're going to crown a champion here. Someone's walking out of Las Vegas with $50,000 and a pretty cool trophy and the honor of saying that they are the Pro Tour Final Fantasy champion.
Yeah, and it's been a great Pro Tour. There's been some really cool matches of Magic, both in limited and constructed. And I feel like it's, you know, even with the metagame being 42% is it, and with our top 8 looking like it does, it's still just been really great Magic.
Yeah, games have been good, and certainly if you were with us for the limited portion of the event, those games were absolutely wonderful. If you've not played Final Fantasy Limited, I highly encourage that you do. Log in an arena and get some games in, because that format, you can basically do whatever you like, as it looks like Ian Robb is going to be taking a quick little mulligan down to 6 cards here. Ian, a player who is very quickly, partner, making a name for himself on the professional circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ian is a player that has had previous success in card games, is a player that, you know, speaking to some of the guys that know him and some of the people that have tested with him over the past 2 events, they say that he really knows his stuff. He's not new to Magic, of course, started playing in 2008, but this is sort of his big break into competitive Magic over the past 2 events. So maybe he doesn't know all the Magic jargon yet, all the lingo, but he will describe to you exactly why he's beating you up in terms that may sound a little awkward, being borrowed from other games or not quite technically correct. He still knows what he's doing.
He's learning. He's learning. He goes. He's smart enough to know to spell pierce a Corey Steelcutter, so he's not here for an accident, that's for sure. As that is a Storm Chaser's talent. There's the Otter. I'm going to pass the turn back. So we're going to head back over to Christian Baker.
Yeah, we are in pre-board games still, but that is a one of fun of Spell Pierce in the main deck from Ian Robb, and it does come very handy here, as Corey Steelcutter, we've often said, is the most important best card in the matchup, and having access to 2 of them would have been nice, but I think Christian is pretty happy to still have 1 here.
Yeah, so nice. He played it twice. So there is a Steelcutter. That Monk token from the Steelcutter is dead thanks to the Torch the Tower. Now this will be a Drake Hatcher, and Rob will pass the turn back over to Baker. Now remember, both these players do have access to copies of Vivi in their main deck. Hasn't shown up just yet, but it is a very powerful card in the matchup if players are able to untap with the Legendary Wizard. So we'll see if that works itself into the equation here in this second game. I swear I'm not from the future.
And yet,
I just had a feeling.
yeah,
Torch it? Torch it.
Torch it.
Prowess.
Yep.
Scry 1. Bottom.
Steelcutter will make a Monk, and now this opt is going to resolve. Vivi trigger, of course, is going to resolve, and the Vivi is exiled, as Ian Robb does mention. So, top card here for Baker. It's going to stay the top card. Happy with the opt. They're now just going to pass the turn back. Can't attack into that Drake Hatchling, as now here's an opt for Ian Robb. That top card here for Ian becomes
The Corey Steelcutter. So this will be very indicative of what Ian's perception of the current game state is. It is one of the best cards in the matchup, so you do want to keep it, but at the same time, can you afford to? And he decides yes.
Yeah, he does. And with that, Corey Steelcutter coming before combat, that Drake Hatcher is going to attack for 3, which is the magic number on that card. So now 3 incubation counters are headed that way.
Please use the purple for the...
Perhaps a Drake will be coming to play in just a moment, as there's a Spirebluff Canal, and Ian will pass the turn back over to Christian.
Yeah, and you do see the reason Ian did think about the Corey Steelcutter is with just the land in hand, it is going to take more than just 1 good draw in order to start triggering things.
There's a Vivi. There's a sleight of hand. Vivi triggered. 1 damage going upstairs. Another Monk is on the way. Now it's in play. Now sleight of hand is going to resolve.
Oh, and a red.
Vivi's going to make a red. This is a Torch to the Tower. Get this Drake out of here. Sacrificing
Drake.
a little something. And now the 2/2 Drakes on the battlefield. Scry 1. So now Vivi is up to 5 toughness. And we've mentioned this on Friday. We mentioned it on Saturday. So we might as well talk about it today. When you get the opportunity to untap with Vivi, bad things happen for the opponent.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful card, and once again, for those at home, Robb is hellbent, and now has lost the Drake Hatcher, so just has a Quarry Steelcutter and a Drake to work with. Of course, there are plenty of great top decks in this deck. Stock Up would be one of them. Spire Bluff Canal would not, but now you can see that the clock is on, and that's an Abrade, so the clock might be off. As if I'm Robb, I am firing that off on this Quarry Steelcutter and trying to close the door here.
And Christian Baker, of course, with the Abrade.
Yes, excuse me.
No problem. There's a block. This.
If I'm Robb, I'm conceding when this happens.
Okay, well, I think Ian says I'm in the top 8. I might play another turn out here real quick. So, Abrade, deal damage, trample because the Quarry Steelcutter, so on and so forth. Stock up or no? Yeah, Drake Catcher. It's not nothing, but it doesn't compete with what the battlefield looks like right now. Stock Up will likely win the game for either one of these players, or at least allow Robb to catch back up. It'll cement Christian's advantage if he's able to find one right now as he's reaching for mana. Looks like Vivi will be the only one that's doing the attacking here. And now there's an island, so pass the turn back. What happens next? Okay, there's an op. Trigger Prowess, bottom very quickly. Next one.
Opt again.
That's op, trigger prowess.
Run it back.
Keep on top. Slide and trigger prowess.
Love it.
Prowess trigger.
3 prowess triggers currently.
Next. 2.
Oh, Monstrous Rage.
Well, if Christian were lower.
Yeah,
nice, but the ability to make a lot of Drakes does become a real thing here.
Yeah, that's the big thing is Monstrous Rage quite good here. Of course, Wild Ride was tempting just because it does have the harmonize ability, but
6, 8.
It's 4 prowess triggers.
Plus Rage, they're going to do the math here real quick. We'll let them do that.
Trample over for 6.
Yep, put 10, I get 10, 6 counters.
Yep.
Okay.
And
That was pretty good.
that was a pretty good turn. That was
Sorry, I just
a
wanted to confirm what our life
red
totals are
card,
now.
I
3 to 10.
think.
Thank you.
3 to 10. So now if you're Baker, you'd like to be able to chain some spells together for the Quarry Steelcutter and Vivi that are on the battlefield.
That's a 5,
Oh,
right?
it's 5, yeah,
Yeah,
it's 5,
because
yeah,
I took
I
3 from
Yep,
them.
sorry.
Okay, let's clear it up. 10 to 5. 5 is a lot different than 3 right now.
Very
so
different.
Good thing they both confirmed.
You know you can equip Quarry Steelcutter?
I'm extremely aware.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
You know it gives trample, right?
I'm also aware of that.
All right, just checking.
No problem.
No. It's fine. Just gonna make sure, you know.
I'll have to imagine that Christian's aware as well. So let's see. Vivi right now is 3 power. You can make it 4 power if you do equip. Remember, that is frustration. Yep. I got a feeling Christian didn't draw a spell. I might be wrong. Ooh.
I got a feeling he's attacking anyways.
Okay.
No blocks.
Ooh. Okay. What's the follow up here?
Red.
Yep.
And
Okay.
trap, rage, right?
Yep.
All right, 6 damage represented. What is the draw? It's a land. All right.
Attack.
Yeah, it might be more than 2.
Yeah, 4 power.
You die to any spell.
Yep.
For 6.
There you go.
4. I get 2 counters.
Yeah, you're saying I have a 4 toughness creature. You have a 4 power attacker.
Brick. Oh, no.
no.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh, this is gross.
Draw.
Yep.
Yep. Dead. Oh, that's so gross. Ian Robb.
Yeah.
Oh man, is gonna win game number 2 over Christian Baker. Playing to win is what he just did with that monstrous rage. Cantrip, rage on the Drake Hatcher. Make some Drakes, cross your fingers, and it worked out very well for the youngster.
And, you know, just half a second away from attacking with just the Drake Hatcher. Took a second, reconsidered the board state, understood exactly what the 2 possible branching paths were for the following turn, and was like, all right, attack with everything.
Oh boy. Yeah, if you're Christian Baker, you gotta be very frustrated not winning that game. 1 spell most likely over those 2 turns. That's all you needed. Obviously on the last turn it needed to just be a spell that would trigger Vivi. And we've said multiple times, and we've seen it this weekend too, that all it takes is an untap with Vivi, and most of the time you're able to get the job done, but Baker was not able to find the necessary tools to cross the finish line, and all of a sudden, Robb is up 2-0 here at Pro Tour Final Fantasy. We're going to take a look at Ian's deck list now, get our eyes on this build. Remember, first player into the top 8 was Ian, and you see the unique build of Izzet Prowess here this weekend. 4 copies of VV, 3 copies of Draycatcher, no copies of Monastery Swiftspear, Monty.
Yeah, and I think what we will take the opportunity to do here as the player's sideboard is actually talk about that sideboarding. Because for Ian, if we look at his sideboard, he's actually taken out 1 VV, 2 Monstrous Rages, a Torch to the Tower, a Wild Ride, and a Stock Up. So some of what we saw from David Root in that previous Izzet Prowess matchup, and he's brought in some of these interaction spells, both copies of Abrade, of course, in answer to Corey's Steelcutter, as well as creatures, 2 copies of Lithomantic Barrage, and then both copies of Spell Pierce have come in from Ian, something that, in addition to the one already in the deck, makes for a total of 3. Not something that we saw in the previous Izzet Prowess matchup. They were waffling between 0 and 1 Spell Pierce for a lot of the time. On the other side, we're going to take a look at Christian Baker's list.
Yeah,
he has perhaps the most unique build of Izzet Prowess here in the top 8, and it's also the list that seems to be doing the least amount of sideboarding when it comes to the mirror match. As we take a look at this list, both copies of Vivi have actually come out alongside that singleton copy of Roaring Furnace. Bringing up his sideboard, he has brought in an additional copy of Abrade to join the one that he has in the main deck, as well as 2 copies of Lithomantic Barrage. Now, one interesting thing is he has not brought in the fire magic that we have seen previously. I'm interested to see if this fire magic is just something that he uses on the draw versus play, or whether it is something that he's just not interested in when it comes to the specific build of Prowess from Ian Robb that has the 4 copies of VV in addition to the 3 copies of Draycatcher.
Yeah, we saw Fire Magic be very potent for Christian Baker yesterday on his way to the top 8 here this weekend. So you may be correct. It might just be an on-the-draw sort of thing to catch up. We'll have to find out, as Christian Baker has some catching up to do. Down 2-0 right now in this matchup against Ian Robb. Remember, winner of this one goes on to an Izzet Prowess mirror against Tony Portolan. On the other side of things, we got mono red aplenty. So if you like mountains, you have certainly come to the right place. Cedric Phillips, Monty DeVuti, we are here in the booth during our last quarterfinal match of Pro Tour Final Fantasy. We, of course, have Maria Bartholdi, Ailey Loney, and Corey Baumeister, Corey Steelcutter himself at the news desk. Marshall Sutcliffe, Paul Cheon. They'll be on the call for our first semifinals match. Eventually, we're going to crown a champion here in Las Vegas. $50,000, an invite to the World Championship, awesome trophy, and most importantly, bragging rights.
Love some bragging
Bragging
love
rights
to get
as
some
the
bragging
Pro
rights.
Tour Final Fantasy champion. Christian Baker, top finish here this weekend, making a name for himself. Started off day number 1 as our lone 8-0. Day 2 got a little more rocky, as tends to do for our 8-0 players we have seen over the course of Magic's history, but able to squeak it out in that final round to make the top 8. Ian Robb, his path a lot more clean. Our first player into the top 8, 14-2 record, and this is back-to-back Pro Tour top 8s for the youngster.
Yeah, definitely continues making a name for himself, and there's a reason I think that a lot of the people that have been playing against him or watching him play have been quite impressed, especially the people that have been testing with him say that he really knows his stuff, even though he is relatively new to the competitive Magic the Gathering scene. And I think for Ian, he has to be feeling pretty good right now. Obviously up 2-0 here, but also Tony Portolan, the potential opponent waiting for him in the semifinals. That's a player that he's beat previously as well yesterday. You heard in Tony's winner interview, he said that on the one hand, Ian beat me and I want revenge. On the other, I've beat Christian, so maybe I just want him again.
Oh, yes, one of those situations, right? Those are always fun. Revenge could be on the mind here for Tony if Ian is able to get through. Christian going to take a look at the opening hand here. See a Shivan Reef, a Storm Chaser's talent among these cards. Ian Robb taking a longer look at things. So we'll see what players decide here in just a moment before our third game is underway.
Yeah, it looks awkward for Christian Baker. That is a one-land hand, I believe. Just the Shivan Reef. There is an opt to try to balance it, but it was ultimately a keep from him. It is a hand that could go very wrong very quickly, of course. If you miss that second land drop between your draw spell, the one card on top that you could scry on the bottom, and the potential next card, then you are in a lot of trouble, as this is a snowbally matchup. But on the other side, Robb is mulliganing. So if you can hit that land drop, if you can start pushing an advantage, Christian is going to be in a great spot, because you really don't need that many lands to function in this matchup.
No, you don't. No, you do not. So Ian's going to take a mulligan here. We'll see if it's 6 cards or less after taking a look at this opening hand. Well, it looks like there's some lands to function with there. There were 3, maybe too many.
Yeah, it looked like a keep, and thinking what goes on the bottom here. And I do see a copy of Corey Steelcutter and Sleight of Hand in Ian's hand, in addition to some lands. I think that may be an upgrade there. Yeah, it looks like 2 lands, a Drake Hatcher, a Sleight of Hand, and a Braid, and a Corey Steelcutter. How'd I do, Coach?
I think you did okay.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
I'll give you a B.
I'll take the B.
Cards are in your opening hand? 7, 6.
Green light means go. Christian, let's see what you can do.
Table Delta, start of game 3. All right, you can begin.
4th quarterfinal, Table Delta indeed, and Christian not even going for the Storm Chaser's talent, just saying that if this opt finds a 1-mana draw spell, I really need to be able to use that to find my second land.
Yep. Bottom, mystery, draw step. Okay.
All right.
Steel cutter? All right, good start.
First sigh of relief.
Yep. Steel cutter, dead.
Correct.
Steel cutted.
Good choice. Next, Storm Chaser's talent. We'll get out of here in just a second. And we'll head back over to Ian Robb. No third land there for Baker.
No third land, obviously important, but less important than the second land. One of the big issues that I do see right now for Christian Baker, both of his lands are Shivan Reefs.
Yeah, that makes it a little bit painful, of course.
Yeah.
Already down to 17. And when Ian starts to really ramp things up, it means that each point of damage that's being taken off those lands could be worse and worse news here for Baker. Now, there's a Spire Bluff Canal, so that's some painless blue-red mana.
Yeah, and Baker only has access to 1 Spell Pierce in the main deck. Did not bring any in, and does not have any more in the sideboard. So that was the only real hope there, and wasn't able to find it. So in a lot of trouble now.
Let's see what the follow-up's going to be. This is an Abrade on the Steel Cutter. Okay, so that problem is solved. Next. If anything, this...
-1.
All right, that's a barrage. The Otter is large and in charge. In for 3. 17-16 in favor of Robb, as he will take a 4th turn and kick things off with a stock up.
Ooh. Things you hate to see.
Well, depending on who you're rooting for, that's for sure. This looks like a Into the Flood Maw, among other things. As the 3 cards will go to the bottom, the stock up will go to the graveyard, and now the 2 cards are coming to hand here for Ian Robb. Next up is Into the Flood Maw. See ya. Bing ya. In for 3. 17-13, back to Baker. Baker will draw. This isn't the worst time to resolve a stock up if he has one. It's going to be Town. We'll replay the Storm Chaser's talent. Otter, pass it back.
-1, but the board is clear, and I was going to say, if you can get away without a Haymaker from Robb this turn, either a VV or another stock up, you'd be okay, but that is not in the books.
Yeah. That is not good news for Christian Baker.
Keep on top.
Opt's going to stay on top. VV make a blue, and Opt again. Another point, and now 5 toughness for the legendary wizard.
2, right?
I've seen this opt up before.
I do a 13.
I went to 12 to play the talent, or
I had you going down to 13.
13 to play?
That's what I had.
You attacked me for 3 to put me to 13.
13,
And then I went to 12 to play the
right,
talent.
yep.
Then 11 off the BB, and then 10 off this trigger, right?
Yeah, not right there.
Okay.
Let's grab one. I'll bottom.
All right, players communicating life totals. They're all good. Vivi's been used.
Pass you.
Land has been played. We're heading back Christian Baker's way, who's in some serious trouble. Though, if you ask Christian, he said, I had the same thing last time. Didn't work out for me. Why does it get to work out for Ian?
Sorry.
There's a stock up 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, my. Well, there's an Abrade there, at least. All the rest of them were lands. That's not what the doctor ordered.
I mean, maybe it is. We're not getting a good look at Christian's hand, but he's been missing land drops, so maybe he has access to an Into the Flood Maw here, uses one of these lands that he had to have taken off of the stock up to get the VV off the board temporarily, and still has game. But no, that's the Spell Pierce that he needed a while ago.
Yep.
And, all right, don't kill me,
Well,
says Christian.
We're going to find out. I'm not sure if Christian's going to get another untap here.
I don't think Ian is going to be kind enough to not kill him.
Let's see what we got. Steel Cutter Trigger. That's 1. Down to 9. Oh, excuse me.
Still at 9. I can't
Down to 9. Yeah, I was going to say, not down to 15. There we go.
Yeah.
Next.
My handwriting, I have never upgrade 3 blue, pass stock up to nature.
Okay.
Yeah, You're not going to concede your final game in this tournament,
You're going to hope.
but this is your final game in the tournament.
Ian Robb getting out the broom. Gonna win this match here over Christian Baker 3-0. Our first player into the top 8 is our last one into the semifinals. Vivi, powerful enough to propel him into a rematch against Tony Portola.
Yeah, I think really great stuff from Christian Baker all weekend, starting out 8-0. Maybe it looked like the wheels were falling off yesterday. Was able to right the ship and make the top 8. Really great run with a unique build of his prowess, but Ian Robb looks like an unstoppable force. And considering yesterday, Ian Robb and Ken Yukihiro simultaneously made the top 8 as our first 2 players, I'm beginning to feel like maybe they're on a collision path to finally face each other in the finals. Of course, their opponents, Yu-Chen Liu and Tony Portolan, will have something to say about that, but this is a matter of maybe unstoppable forces coming to meet here.
Well, I will look forward to whatever we end up seeing in our finals, but we're not there just yet. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to do some recapping of things. When we do come back, it's Maria at the news desk. Then more magic here from Las Vegas.